to the 6th seminar that is conducted today under the Committee on Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies. Those who are joining online, welcome too. So today's two lectures are going to be conducted to mark the world's Indigenous Peoples Day under the theme that we have chosen, Challenges in Coexistence with Nature. So to address us, there are two eminent speakers in Professor Premakumara de Silva, an anthropologist, and also Dr. Priyanka Weerasekara, both coming from University of Colombo. So we will start with Professor Premakumara de Silva. Let me introduce Professor Premakumara de Silva to this podium with a brief introduction. Professor Premakumara de Silva is the Chair Professor of Sociology and Anthropology at the Department of Sociology, University of Colombo. He is also an honorary research professor at Deakin University, Australia, and a senior research fellow at the University of Birmingham, UK. As an administrator, he has been a Deputy Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, and he has served as a Dean of the Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo, and also Head of the Department in the Department of Sociology in the Faculty of Arts. And he also has served as an Acting Director at National Center for Advanced Studies on Social Sciences. Currently, as a member of the University of Commission, member of the University Grant Commission, he is serving as the chairman of the UGC Standing Committees on Humanities and Social Sciences, Education, Fine Arts, Library and Information Sciences, and Social Reconciliation. So many committees under him. And he has published a number of books, chapters, and over 50 articles in English and both in Sinhala language, and published by reputed international publishers as well as local publishers. And I'm not going to tell all the book titles that he has got involved with, but I know very well that he has edited a collection of works on Vedda Population of Sri Lanka, also with another colleague of his. And he has won several prestigious international fellowships as well as some national awards, including British Academy, American Academy of Religion, Sir Radcliffe Brown and Sir Raymond Firth Fellowship of Royal Anthropological Institute in UK, and Australian Research Council. And Professor Silva won the CVCD Excellence for Most Outstanding Senior Researcher Award in the field of humanities, aesthetic and social sciences of Sri Lanka in 2018. In the same year, he won the State Literary Award for the Best Academic Book Translated in Social Sciences. And in addition to those, of course, he has won numerous university awards such as Vice Chancellor's Award and Senate Awards. So it's a pleasure to introduce Professor Premakumara de Silva to this podium. Over to you, Professor de Silva.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Professor Jayanthi. Thank you very much for your elaborative introduction of me. I'm sure, thank you once again for inviting me as the series organizer of SLAAS multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary seminar series. And I'm so glad to be here, and nice to talking to people present here as well as the online. Talking about Vedda, the indigenous people in Sri Lanka, very interesting actually academic exercise. I actually started my work seriously studying about Vedda from 2010, soon after the war. I was asked to actually report back to the present conditions of the Vedda people in the East Coast as well as the other part of Sri Lanka, particularly Vellas, that area. I will discuss in a minute. That was a very interesting work that we conducted in 2010 and 2011. It's really interesting to note here that the 2011 actually a very important year where you see the Seligmans, one of the great anthropologists, Gabriel Seligman and his wife, basically Brenda Seligman, conducted or published their work in 1911. Then soon after the 100 years, actually I was asked to do the work on Vedda. So that I was so happy and I want to really sort of capture the current status of the Vedda at that time. Then after that, actually, I was involved in another project soon after the COVID, 2022. That was particularly focused on Ratugala Vedda people, by specific studies on Ratugala. But my earlier work very much actually concentrated almost all the Veddas villages. Let me say what I'm going to talk. Actually, I will give you some of the backgrounds of my studies and also a bit of a literature and maybe a bit of mapping of Vedda communities scattered all over Sri Lanka. Then, of course, methodology bit of findings, interpretation and arguments, discussions, and of course, if you have any clarification, I would like to, or questions, I would like to really respond to that. So start with the literature. It's very interesting. As I said, earlier, Vedda's work particularly became very serious work. Our anthropological perspective was started into 1911. So that Seligman couple, actually, they came to Sri Lanka in 1907 and 1908. So these 2 years they were here in the couple and they tried to figure out the Vedda's status of at that time. So Seligman's work was really important. So he wrote a book called Veddas in Ceylon, published in 1911. This particular work was not really celebrated in the field of anthropology because at that time, another great anthropologist, Bronislaw Malinowski, published his work on the Trobriand Islanders in Pacific Sea, and Seligman's work was very much really not really came to the kind of central piece in the anthropological discussion at that time. So somehow this is a very interesting work, so I will bit of engage with that work as well. So there are others actually then very seriously studied by Vedda in Transition by Weerasekara. That was a very interesting book. Then Premakumara de Silva's work on Vedda language of Ceylon, 1972. So you see, but I am not going to discuss all this. You see literature, but also I want to draw your attention on this particular work, Vedda's village of Anuradhapura. So it's a very interesting stuff. Vedda in Anuradhapura, my gosh, this is our center of the civilization. If anthropology step in there and find out Vedda villages in Anuradhapura, so that's very interesting. So the James Brow, in a very interesting anthropologist who went to study in Anuradhapura area. He actually found out there are a number of Vedda villages can be identified in Mahavilachya, Anuradhapura, actual Rajarata areas. That was really interesting and fascinating work. There he basically found out there are such Vedda villages, actually around 46 villages. You won't believe, there are 46 villages in the right middle of Mahavilachya, Anuradhapura area. He documented everything, and he studied one or two villages quite detailed, particularly in Kukulava area, and he wrote 2 books on that particular the field studies, the Vedda villages of Anuradhapura. That's very fascinating stuff. I have never come across, but I have not touched even in my work this particular area, because I was concentrate much on the basically what I call Maha Vedi rata, the great land of the Vedda, or Vedda's country, right? So these are some of the actually book. I'm also involved in, as Sumedha mentioned, the study on Vedda actually published one of the anthology or a bibliography of Vedda's work done by other scholars, and we have compiled the bibliography, and that is in Sinhala, but we have basically compiled all the English publications as well as the websites, then of course newspaper publication and so on. In that books we have compiled all this. Anybody actually work on Vedda, they can basically refer this book, because we have collected much of the publication on Vedda at that time. So apart from that, there are other colonial officials like Spittle and also you see Brohier work on that. There are many colonial officers actually work on, like Parker and so on. There's a body of colonial knowledge production on Vedda as well, apart from this anthropological sort of work. Then actually these studies basically argue that the indigenous population basically settled on the island well before the Aryan arrived, establishing presence that eventually became concentrated in Vedirata or Mahavedirata, encompassing regions from the Hunnasgiriya hills to the eastern seashores. So you see the Vedda country is very much, I will show you in a minute, how this Mahavedirata or Vedda country is basically located. Vedda as a hunting community had managed to endure and thrive for thousands of years despite challenges such as plague, hunger, disasters and wars. Therefore, it is possible that the Veddas would have been better off if they had been allowed to undergo a process of self-evolution in the mid-1900s without external influences interfering with their natural evolutionary process, so on. So you see now, this is 2 pictures actually I picked from Seligman's work. He would call traditional Vedda. Vedda he actually encountered during his field work in the Mahavedirata, that Bintan, Uva Bintan area. And you see, there are, of course, Seligman identified 3 categories of actually Veddas. The wild Vedda, the sea Vedda, as well as the village Vedda. He has categorized these 3, Vedda who basically live in villages, Vedda who live in basically wild, and of course in the sea area. So there is 3 categories, but later I'm sure, because in 19th century, early 20th century, anthropology wanted to really categorize things, but this particular categorization also now challenged by later work of anthropologist Vedda Population. So based on the 19 11 Seligman work, Vedda in Ceylon. Basically, we have mapped the villages that he has basically identified during this his field work. So there are about 33, around 33, 32, basically villages he has identified in Vedda. Starting from Hunnas Falls to actually East Coast. You see that area, what we call Maha Vedi rata. The Vedda actually lived in that particular area. By early 20th century, he could able to identify 33 villages of Vedda. That's really, really interesting. But let me basically bring Weerasekara here, because Weerasekara tried to sort of argue against the positions of Seligmans. Weerasekara actually, he doesn't like the Vedda, calling Vedda as a very primitive people in Sri Lanka. So he said Vedda is not a primitive people, right? Vedda, of course, Vedda has a different kind of arrangements with the kings, because they were really parallel people with the Sinhalese king and the Veddas. Vedda kings, Veddas leaders actually very much has a connection with the king. So they were supporting actually Sinhalese king to fight against foreign invaders and so on and so forth. So Vedda wasn't actually really primitive people. Vedda was a very good, strong archers. They can fight for guerrilla wars and so on. So primitive people, you can't really think about doing such things, right? So therefore, Weerasekara was not really happy about the colonial construction of Vedda people in colonial literature, as well as the anthropological literature on Vedda. Let me read out this really interesting stuff he basically brought here. Weerasekara actually operated the premises that the late 14th century, that's around Kandyan Kingdom, starting from Kandyan Kingdom, Buddhist civilization had moved from the northern dry zone as the royal country or Rajarata to the coastal area and the central highlands of Kandy, both forested regions and the habitats of both Sinhala Buddhists and the Veddas. These regions were opened up by the Sinhalese Buddhist king from farming or agriculture, and in time the Veddas population were gradually drawn into the dominant agrarian economic favored by Buddhist king. That's very interesting how actually Vedda been really gradually getting into the transforming from hunting and gathering to basically agriculture. You see, getting into the Sinhalese Buddhist kind of a culture, incorporating them gradually. That is how you can hardly find Vedda in now Maha Vedi rata. You can't find actually people somewhere in there are a place name called Vedi rata, Vedda Gala. If you go to Vedda Gala, you hardly find Vedda today. Vedda Kumbura. There are so many places named in all around Sri Lanka because you hardly find Vedda. Where have all the Veddas gone? Vedda basically incorporated into the Sinhala Buddhist culture either way. In my actually work in 2010, 2011 and 2022, not just I actually found out that the Buddhization or the people, Vedda being actually incorporated into the Buddhist culture, but they also actually incorporate into Hindu or Hinduization as well as Christianization, and most importantly actually they were modernized. You see, that's a very important. This process is very important. Just not they're really getting into the incorporate into the Buddhist culture, but also they've been actually Hinduized. Vedda living in Hindu dominant ecological zones, and also Vedda living in Sinhalese areas, as well as the Vedda living in some other scattered villages. The Christianization also seriously happening. Quite recent study shows that, including my work. So this is very interesting. Where you see now the pressure come to Vedda, not just basically they were really incorporating into the Sinhala Buddhist civilization or culture, but actually one point I want to make here is that this incorporation actually did not take place by force. That's the most important thing. They were gradually incorporated into that by the gift giving by the kings and title given by the actually king. Let's say a very interesting thing, Kulagedara Muhuttala was the kind of a, regional leader of Vedda, because he was really supporting king to fought against, the foreign invaders, British armies and so on. He was really given the title of Kulagedara Muhuttala. Right, so now if you go to this Kulagedara area, there you see he's now turned into a deity. People basically worship him. So this is how very interesting way of incorporating. That's a very complex process. I don't have much time to actually elaborate on that. I just wanted to tell you, but this this conversion or incorporation did not take place with the force. That's the most important thing we have to mention here. But unlike today. Right, today is something different. Modernization is very, very powerfully taking place, and it's a very strong hegemonic process where Vedda being basically incorporated. So the external pressure is so powerful and so important when you talk about basically Vedda. So that what has happened to Veddas, what I call homeland. So other people actually fighting for their homeland. Nobody talk about actually Veddas homeland. So no, it was there, Maha Vedi rata, and basically now Veddas basically confined to the very small scattered villages in Maha Vedi rata area. So I'll show you in a minute the number of villages that we worked basically in that area. So you see now due to modernization, colonization, and also other development projects, particularly Mahaveli and Galloya irrigation systems, basically relocate many Veddas. Actually, they were really displaced, and particularly some of the Vedda in Dambana, they were relocated in the Mahaveli edge zone in the Bulagala area, not the area where the Girandru area and Mahaveli Sea, and in Hunnasgiriya, Vedda was forced to actually get into the agriculture. So Vedda did not know how to actually cultivate paddy and kind of stuff. They were really, either mortgaged their paddy lands, or they sold them out for the other Sinhalese people and became the laborers of their own land. So that's a very interesting things going on actually if you really closely looked at the life of the Vedda. Yeah, this is happening actually not the colonial time. This is happening, I'm talking about the post-colonial or after independence, irrigation work and development programs and so on. It very much actually hardly hit on the Veddas areas, so what we call Maha Vedi rata. So therefore, actually, they are compelled to rapidly transition into part-time chain cultivation, slash and burn. So they are gradually moving from the hunting and gathering to other works into slash and burn. And of course, they cultivate, rely on seasonal crops, on nomads who basically rely on cattle, and hence increasing their dependence and vulnerability. That's very, very important. During this period, the Vedda were modernizing their hunting techniques and ritual while also transitioning to become paddy farmers. So Vedda was really now, I will show you the statistics in a minute, and they are, of course, they are basically move away from their sort of very traditional way of life, due to this external pressure. In essence, the current situation of the Vedda can be summarized as a population in Sri Lanka with native heritage living in isolated areas that stretch from the eastern and the northern eastern shops of the hill countries to the eastern and the northern north central regions of the country, with trends basically lead into a rapid modernization. So modernization, one of the key process that Vedda was really encountering with. So in this background, actually, we have basically designed our research. You see now, I just gave you a bit of a kind of backgrounds of what is really happening. So not to spend much time on research methodology, it's a very mixed research. You know, we basically collected both quantitative and sort of qualitative data, what we call mixed method we have employed, basically starting with the household surveys, you know, and also particularly key informants interviews we conducted, 8 focus group discussions, and also stakeholder sessions with the other stakeholders on the government sector and officials and so on. Basically, general meetings were conducted with the leaders and, of course, people. So we I basically stationed research assistant in the villages. So they lived there in nearly 2 months and work with them day and night. They basically observe what is going on in the villages and got acquainted with the people, and we were able to sort of penetrate into their life quite you know, densely. So because now one of the key research method would be in anthropology, actually participant observation. You know, the researcher would live with the community that they are studying for a longer period. And then, of course, day and night they basically observe and take part certain events in the villages and try to figure out what is really going on in the villages. You know, this anthropological work are very dense, and you have to spend a lot of time with the people in order to get that. So this is the kind of picture I have been interviewed with the leader in Ratugala area, and so our team work, some of the members of our team working with me in Ratugala research project which we were conducted in 2022. So let me basically show you the village that we worked in 2010 and 11. You see now, the earlier I have basically shown you the Maha Vedi rata. Now in Maha Vedi rata you see now there are very limited where the village basically can be found in. So you see now this is very scattered number of Vedda villages along the Maha Vedi river and up to you know, east coast. So we worked in all those villages in 2010 and 11. Then if you really looked at the number of you know, villages where we basically collected all the socio-economic data, including a number of household, population, and so on. There, I just want to show you some of the statistics. Basically, number of families by location in the locations in six locations, particularly Ratugala, Pollebedda, Hunnasgiriya, Dimbulagala, Wakarei, and basically Dambana. So these areas, largely, these are the family number of family, and also the total population we have covered in our basically research. So yeah, you see large number of people actually concentrated in Dimbulagala and Wakarei area, you know, and also Hunnasgiriya. So if you really look at the population according to the age group, you see, you know, whether basically you have a bit of a young age cohort, basically that's very important, between age, you see, 18 to 35. And most importantly, The next slide actually would give you some sort of idea about their economic activities. You see, if you really, I just want to draw your attention on the hunting and basically honey gathering. So these activities was the very old kind of economic activities, but now they are gradually moving into you see wage labor, and of course paddy farming, chain cultivation, bit of you see largely basically people also doing fishing and so on. So that shows the actually how Vedda been really shift into a different kind of actual economic activities. So it showed the process of largely modernizing Vedda in those areas. So then let me actually quote one of the extracts from the given by Hunnasgiriya Uruwarige Jeevan, and he said there is no life without money. We need money for everything. If you go to the forest, it's money. If we go fishing, we can earn about 1,000 rupees per day. If we go to the forest, we can earn even more. We also earn a living through paddy cultivation and harvesting during the off-season. I go to Colombo to engage in construction work. I was in Vellavatta at a construction site where I was a concrete mixture. About 50-60 boys from the village went with me and returned during the harvesting season. So that you see the seasonal labor migrations seriously taking place from Vedda people actually moving from village to Vedda village to city areas. That as a result of that, actually their lifestyle basically becoming very interestingly changing. Now most of the Vedda young people use mobile phone and all kind of stuff. They just wear trousers and all kind of stuff. That's really interesting. They are basically modernizing. They become a kind of what we call cultural brokers of transmitting urban culture into the Vedda actually villages. That's really interesting stuff going on here. And let me also show you number of families ownership of the land. Land ownership is also very, very important here. You see most of the Vedda actually live either illegal or maybe they live in largely state land. 46% they actually with the permit, and other 20% of them actually live in unauthorized bit of a land. So now Vedda was actually sort of an owner of their lands. They were freely moving around in the villages and forest and so on and so forth. Now they have basically confined into very small places where even they don't have their ownership and so on. So they were really demarcated from, if you go to Mahadruaya reservoir, that area, so they were not permitted to getting into even their forest and so on. Some of the places there, they worship their traditional gods and so on. That was really stopped by basically by citing that they are really poaching things and so on, because only few people were allowed with the identity card from the wildlife department get into the actually forest to gather honey and so on. Particularly they wanted to gather honey for offering that honey to Kataragam as well as the Dalada Maligawa. So they have a kind of ritual that they wanted to gather honey and offer to Buddha and the god Kataragam, even for Mayangana and so on. So they have certain places where they visit annually to offer these offerings to those sacred places. Then of course, if you really look at these are the bit of houses that they are really living in, and this particular picture actually is really important. The left side one. There you see now this East Coast Vedda's house. particularly after the tsunami, they were given a number of houses, constructed by the international NGOs. They were really given them, but before that, actually, they were living in like the middle picture, some sort of very small sort of kajan, bit of a house. And they actually live in that kind of houses. If you go to any Vedda villages, you would find them. They are living in such an environment. Then, if you really look at the marriage, it's really interesting. Age at marriage, it's really interesting. You see, most of the female, teenage marriages are very much, evident in the Veddas villages, particularly female under 18. There are such, it's not a prohibition among the Veddas. They really it is happening, and teenage pregnancy is quite evident in Vedda villages. Actually, they are not really bothered about that. That's their life. They basically enter into the marriage a very early age, basically. Then also rapid increase of mixed marriages, marriage from other communities. That's really interesting. Traditionally they were practicing what we call endogamy. Within their Wariga, within their place, villages, they married. But now outside forces, outside people are also actually get connected with Vedda women, and of course Vedda young men as well. So they basically now will see a lot of mixed marriages going on. In one particular person from Daban actually mentioned it, let me quote, people are not bothered about marrying people from other Wariga and even Sinhala. People going for work out of the village and even as far as Colombo get married to Sinhala people and settle down in those areas. There are some people who have migrated to Dambana from other parts of the country after their marriages and so on. That marriage become very interesting, and they've been basically either they Singhalize after marriage, or maybe they get into the Vedda community as Veddas. So that leader of the Ratugala Vedda actually explained that in the past, due to the marriages were exclusively conducted within the village, it reduced occurrence of marital issues. However, there is now an increase in mixed marriages and related family issues as a result of increase of love affairs with neighboring non-Vedda villages. Urbanization and the also frequent migrations of young individuals between rural and urban areas are the primary factors contributing to the prevalence of mixed marriages and so on. Mixed marriage is one of the actually major phenomena that we have basically observed and identified. So quickly, if I say something about the education, if you really looked at the older generations, right, it shows in the blue, and older generations hardly go to schools. School systems really not their choice, but the younger generation now see they are really getting into school system, though there are a lot of other issues basically in the school system, so marginalization and exclusion of Vedda in the school, classrooms and so on. So therefore, Vedda community actually, though they are allowed to actually access to formal schooling and free education as citizens of Sri Lanka, most of schools are under staff and under equipped, and even the ones that have some facilities have been improved during the recent times. On top of being under resources, the parents of Vedda children are mostly unaware about the value of schooling, hence making children not particularly interested in education. So education is not that actually interested of Vedda people, rather they just wanted to, children to work on their chena and paddy and collect other things, go into forest and do forest collections and contribute to the household economy. But although formal education structure has been in place for about half a century, even among the Vedda settlements of the country, most of the facilities that are available in the townships are not yet available in the schools situated in Vedda settlements. According to most teachers and principals in the schools in the Vedda settlements, there are major issues that hinder education and issues that discourage children from the Vedda community from participating in formal schooling. It's not just actually Vedda doesn't like to go to school, but also the pressure coming from the outside as well as contribute to not them to participate in education. So that also you can see both way, not so that basically marginalization, basically excluding Vedda, getting into the mainstream and school systems, basically really happening against hinder their education. So language use, I'm sure she will explain more about it, but language is another important area where when you talk about culture and Vedda's current status and so on. Basically, you see now most of the Vedda turn into Sinhala and basically Tamil. You see in the particularly if you really looked at the next slide, you see now 85% of the Vedda people actually they don't know their own languages. That's very, very serious stuff. You see, particularly young people, children, they don't know, they are not really speaking. Some of the young people actually just, they can talk bit of when the tourists actually getting into their villages and so on. That's a bit of way of life, but rather than that, generally they speak their household language, basically either Tamil or Sinhala. So it's really, really interesting, except some of the older Veddas can speak a bit of language, because when you go and see Vedda leaders, several Vedda leaders is appearing in this particular picture, and they would really talk to you in Vedda language, but other young people and children, they hardly understand and they don't know much about that. If you don't know the language, if you don't know your culture as well. You see, now they are not much interested in their culture. They are largely, actually, as I said, Sinhalization and basically Tamilization going on quite heavily. These, you know some of this Vedda leader and Uruwarge Vaniletto, and the other leader from Vakare area, and this also the one leader from Vakare, and this is actually Goba. He died some time back. When I saw him in 2011, of course he was there, and he died after a couple of years, and his son is there. Now he is the leader of that village. I don't remember now. No, sorry. Yeah. Then again, religious identity. That's also a very important thing. I talk about actual language. I talk about marriage. I talk about education. I talk about, you see, the religious identity also very interesting. There's another process going on, the Buddhization as well as the Christianization or Hinduization of Vedda. It is happening. Actually, if you go to Vedda villages, you see churches basically establish. People were really encouraging to go to church. Particularly that happened in Ratugala, where my recent studies I have really seen the Sunday they go to mass and they were given different kind of you see benefits by participating service, church services and so on, and of course Buddhist temples being set up in the village and so on. That's happening. that if you really observe what is really going on in the Vedda village, their religious identity is largely changing. Now they actually basically claim as they are basically Buddhists, not largely thinking about believing their spirit cult, what we call the Nayaku, dead ancestors. That was the kind of belief system they had, a long time. And they believe in Nayaku, they believe in the dead ancestors and so on, spirit cult. So spirit cult, whereas, they are not anymore, believe in that. Of course, apart from the, some of those ritual that they are performing. So therefore, currently 74% of the Vedda call themselves Buddhists, whereas 18% call themselves Hindus. Only 2.75 of the Vedda currently worship and believe in their traditional gods, Nayaku. So they have actually converted into this figure actually from 2011 one, but the Christianization, Catholicization, or evangelicalization also taking place. The evangelical groups are very closely work with those deprived Vedda communities by providing certain material benefit for them to actually believe in their gods and so on. So these are the pictures, actually two pictures, Kirikoraha, ritual performance, Dabana. Kirikoraha become now the kind of public performance for visitors. It's not something way that they are really performing to get a good hunting or maybe protect from the spirits and so on and so forth. So now it's commercialized. So they perform even in the Colombo area or hotels. And there are teams in the Vedda community. If you really call them, they would come. You have to, they will charge from you. So that kind of it's become the Vedda culture become commodified. The commodification of Vedda culture. That's also happening. Please, I am not saying that it's bad, but at least as an anthropologist, I can just report what is really happening in the Vedda communities, not to actually take any position whether it is good or bad. So actually also loss of traditional identity. Largely they have lost their traditional identity because Vedda were very much into their Variga. So the Variga is, there are a number of Variga in the Veddas communities. Tala Variga, Uru Variga, Unapana Variga, there are a lot of Variga. So that Nambudini and so on and so forth. Actually some of the Varigas already disappeared. Some of the Variga identified by the Seligmans in 1911, that has basically those Variga was disappeared. So it is not even mentioned in today's discussions, right? So largely Uru Varga, Vanilatto, that the Uru Varga is the one of the dominant Varga now. They are the people who are really up and running the Vedda community and give the leadership to actually Vedda community. And so there are such Variga, but now they are no more. Earlier at the in the pre-modern times, they were really married within the Variga. Now they don't care about Variga, and they married across the Variga as well as the other non-Varigas as well. And another point I want to bring, particularly by providing an example from Ratugala, incorporation of the other ethnic groups, that is basically, as I said, the Sinhalization and the Tamilization going on. Vedda largely, actually in Ratugala Vedda, they claim they are Sinhalese, right? Only 27 families call them as Vedda, right? Most of them call their Sinhala. They speak Sinhala. There's one Tamil and largely no Muslims. Sinhala and Vedda mixed actually about 83. So either marriage, husbands or wife from Sinhalese or Vedda origin. So you see the mixing going on quite rapidly and Sinhalization going rapidly, because most of our conversation we had in Sinhala. It's even where the chief talked to me in Sinhala in Ratugala. So this is quite, this is a rapidly, changing village, as far as compared to other villages in Vedda communities. However, nearly 50% of those claiming to be Vedda stated that even if their ethnicity was not specifically identified as Vedda, they considered themselves as such due to having grandparents or relatives from previous generations who were Vedda. Approximately 70% of the participants identify as a Vedda acknowledge their lack of proficiency in the Vedda language and so on. So you see that it's really very important, and some Veddas actually calling them as Vedda because of their kith and kins were Veddas and so on. But they can't really speak Vedda language or other, they know much about Vedda culture. Some individuals from the Sinhalese and Tamil ethnic groups who have married into the Ratugala community are now identify themselves as Vedda. That's also a very interesting thing. So what Weerasekara was calling actually self-primitivization. So the Sinhalese can also be turned into Veddas, or Vedda can also be turned into Sinhalese. So it happened either way. This process going either way. When I met one of the actually young man in Pollebedda, he's originally a Sinhala person. And he basically he told me in Sinhala, "Mama Veddata ඇඳගත්තා කියලා." Right? So he said sir, Mama Veddata ඇඳගත්තා. He was a Sinhalese gentleman and married to a Vedda woman, and he just grow his hair and turn all these attire into Vedda's attire and so on. He became actually Sinhala Vedda. See. So that it happened either way. You can't just call actually Vedda. So maybe we must be also part of the Vedda community. We don't know. So Vedda were everywhere in Sri Lanka, Even you go to Potupitiya, that Hansa Sandesha or Paravi Sandesha were talking about Potupitiya Vedda. So Vedda in somewhere very close, right? So we in the civilizational process, actually sometimes we've been, transformed into a Sinhalese, culture. So that can happen. Anyhow, so their identity losing actually quite evidently shown in this particular figure, and they also actually bit of concern about their identity because some of the people look at this particular quotation, extraction. We will be respected only if we remain as Veddas. If we becoming identical to the common Sinhalese, we will lose the pride of being Vedda. Therefore, we prefer to carry on our ancestry. We do not want to cause any trouble for anyone in the country, but we would value any help that would enable us to practice our liberty. So, Thala Bandara Gunawardhana from Pollebedda. They were really concerned about being Vedda, particular identity that happened in East Coast Vedda. So they were really happy to be Vedda, particularly older generations. They just wanted to keep their identity quite strongly, rather getting into other larger cultures. So one participant highlighted that the identity of Vedda is exceptionally distinct worldwide, and therefore it is interpretative for future generations to safeguard it. However, over 90% acknowledge that they possess little or no understanding of the Vedda language and cultural practices. All of the respondents currently utilize Sinhala or Tamil as their primary means of communication with their families. Many traditional customs unique to Vedda are disappearing due to the Vedda language not being passed down to the newer generations. So that is not basically happening. Let me show you another interesting cultural practices where Vedda, they have been practicing for a longer period, Adivasi, basically medicinal knowledge, then of course other knowledges, basically knowledge of practicing rituals, then lullabies, basically other poems and poetry, Adivasi songs, Yadini, and performing Kirikoraha, performing Hatma, and so on and so forth. If you really look at some of those things, actually they are not really convinced. They don't know much about these traditional Vedda practices, cultural performance, and so on. Yeah, then another interesting area I want to bit of touch in the name changing. You see, that's also really happening because you see now most of the Vedda living in Sinhala dominant area, actually they have given names, Sinhalese name. Vedda living in largely in Tamil area, they give the Tamil name for their children and so on. Let's say, for instance, Uru Varge Nilmini, Tala Varge Saman. So that kind of you see names are very much common in among the Vedda community. So this is further evidence for Sinhalization and the Tamilization of the Vedda in our country. So how much time I have? Okay. Let me come to the discussions quickly. Usually I will bit of a read out quickly, and so I just wanted to come certain conclusion. Thank you. Presently, Vedda communities, including the Ratugala Vedda, are experiencing substantial pressure to conform to contemporary practices, jeopardizing their traditional preservations. They have substantial challenges in preserving their cultural identity and traditional way of life amidst rapid modernization. As society progresses technologically and culturally, an eminent obstacle encouraged by the Vedda people is the intrusion upon their customary domain due to the depletion of forest, expansion of modern agriculture, and implementation of government infrastructure projects. The loss of land not only disturbed the Veddas people's traditional lifestyle, which is closely connected with the nature, but also jeopardize their spiritual and cultural bonds with the land. Furthermore, the Vedda community faces numerous challenges when it comes to adjusting to modern life, including social and economic hardships. The community's marginalization is worsened by the lack of access to education, healthcare, and work possibilities, which also hampers their capacity to maintain their traditional customs and traditions. Furthermore, the influence of globalization and mainstream cultural presents difficulties in preserving Vedda culture. Modern youth are frequently drawn into contemporary lifestyles and technological progress, leading to a gradual erosion of traditional wisdoms and norms within society. Efforts are underway to address these difficulties by promoting land rights, conservation culture, and the supporting sustainable development initiative that empower Vedda communities while respecting their legacy. However, there are significant obstacles that lie ahead, and ongoing efforts are necessary to protect the survival and well-being of the Vedda group and its unique cultural heritage. Securing land rights for the Vedda people is crucial in order to safeguard their ancestral territory and maintain their customary lifestyle. This encompasses acknowledging their rightful possessions and authority over inherited territories, safeguarding reserve locations and engaging them in the decision-making procedures for land utilization and resource administration. Development activities should give priority to sustainability and demonstrate respect for environment in order to minimize adverse effect on the Vedda community and their ancestral lands. One should consider investigating sustainable livelihood possibilities such as ecotourism or organic farming to create economic prospects while also conserving the natural environment. Access to high quality education and vocational training can equip young Vedda individuals to successfully navigate the contemporary world while simultaneously preserving and valuing their traditional identity. To preserve cultural continuity, education programs should integrate traditional knowledge and skill into the mainstream curriculum. Promoting cultural exchange and interaction between the Vedda community and the wider culture might facilitate the development of mutual comprehension and admiration. Cultural exchange initiatives in inter-community gatherings and collaboration with local institutions can foster a heightened sense of admiration and understanding for Vedda culture and custom across the broader populace. As a final note, let me say this. At a time of celebrating Indigenous Day of the world's indigenous people, we must ensure that legal rights of indigenous people as protected by national laws and international agreements like the UN declarations on the right of indigenous people. This is of utmost importance. The primary objective of the advocacy initiative should be to enhance public consciousness regarding the rights and the requirements of the Vedda community, while also ensuring that governments and other relevant parties held responsible for upholding those rights. With that note, I will conclude my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Premakumara de Silva. Now I want to invite the next speaker, Dr. Priyanka Weerasekara, who is a senior lecturer at the Department of Communication and Creative Arts, Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo. And she has been specializing in Sinhala first from University of Kelaniya, and then she has got an MA in linguistics from Sri Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India, and then the PhD was obtained from the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Community Studies, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. In addition to that, she is a Sangeeta Visharada that she has got from Badkhande University, and she has a diploma in dancing, a very versatile lady, and higher diploma in Hindi language and literature from Kelaniya Hindi, it's from again India, from Agra, India. Then she has got several awards like Kala Abhimani in 2019, and another national award, Vanita Abhimani, national award winner in 2020 in educational category. And prior to joining University of Colombo, she has served as a professor in the Department of Languages, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. And she's also the director of an aesthetic institute known as Arunalu Kalayatanaya, conducted under the Department of Cultural Affairs of Sri Lanka. And Priyanka is a professional singer and a program presenter of Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation and Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. As many of you may know, she has a collection of lovely songs, including some of the Lama Geeta like Chuti Kurulani and Midule Valley Maligava that we used to love and we still love. So it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Priyanka Weerasekara to the podium.
Thank you, Professor Sumedha. You have given very comprehensive introduction of me to introduce this forum. So, first I would like to express my gratitude to the Sri Lankan Science Association for the advancement of science, for providing this opportunity to address this professional forum. And also I like to thank Professor Ishara Fernando, Professor Sumedha Jayatilaka, and also Dr. Handaragama for coordinating my participation in this forum. Today my presentation is on the sociolinguistic study of contemporary context of Vedda language with special reference to Dambana Sri Lanka. Thank you, Professor. You have given comprehensive introduction on Vedda literature. So that is very important that is very sound for start my presentation as well. The existence of an Aborigines people of Sri Lanka called the Vedda has been recorded in the ancient palm leaf chronicles, the Mahavansa. In Pali, Vyada means hunter with bow and arrows, and it is considered to be the word from which the Sinhala term Vedda is derived. The people refer to themselves as Vannilattu, which means forest or nature dwellers. According to archaeological, genealogical, and anthropological evidences, the Vedda in Sri Lanka have been regarded as the indigenous inhabitants of Sri Lanka, preserving a direct line of descent from the island original Neolithic community called Balangoda Man. Sri Lankan prominent archaeologist Siran Dharanegala has claimed that the Vedda have a close relationship with Balangoda Man based on his data of the prehistory of Sri Lanka in 1992. S.B. Allopola in 1990 presents the results of a genetic study of Veddas, finding considerable genetic similarities between the Vedda and the Balangoda Man. As Aboriginal inhabitants, the Vedda in Sri Lanka are rich in many cultural values. The community lived in simple life with a cordial interrelationship with nature. The Sri Lankan history contains several references to the Vedda, stating that they are descended from clan Kolyakas, as Professor said. Vannilattu also believed that their clan existed even before the era of Lord Buddha and that they belongs to a clan Yakkas. The Vedda have been the focus attention in recent years because the rapid changes occurring in their habit will drastically transform their lifestyle. Like it's completely discussed with Professor Premakumara. And traditionally the Vedda were hunter-gatherers. A few generations ago, the Veddas used the bow and arrows as one of the main tools for hand hunting. During the last 6 decades, drastic changes have occurred in Vedda way of life due to the impact of modernization on their culture and society. The socio-economic transformation of Vedda lifestyle has driven them towards diversity, making their culture and language more complex. According to the Vedda, cultural aspects and their distribution can be divided in 3 major groups. One group is scattered over the fairly large region in the southeast of the island, interior from the coast, including portion of Monaragala, Badulla, Ampara, and Batticaloa district. The second group can be found in Anuradhapura district. The third major group of Vedda is found along the eastern coast of Sri Lanka, between Walacheni and Trincomalee. They are generally known as Coast Vedda or Muhudu Vedda. Unlike the first 2 groups, they speak Tamil as their mother tongue and they are typically Hindus. You can see here the current Vedda settlement areas in Dambana, situated about 11 miles from Mahayangana in Uva province. Currently, the Veddas are confined to small scattered communities in Dambana, Watuyaya, Gurukumbara and Kotabagini. That was my research areas. There are a number of important reasons for selecting Dambana as a field setting of research. One major reason is that this particular place is truly significant from a historical point of view, and moreover, previously conducted research on Vedda culture has discovered Dambana to be a vital place where Vedda culture and language still remain. Also, the Indigenous center is situated in Kotabakini, as you know, and the Vedda chieftain Vannilathu and his family also live in Kotabakini. Coming to my topic, main scholars have done comprehensive research on Vedda language. Vedda language has been identified by some scholars as a dialect of Sinhala, particularly in 1911 Seligmans, in 1933 R.L. Spittle. In 1964, the comprehensive study of Vedda language was undertaken by M.W. Sugathapal de Silva, and in 1974, Keno Dharmadasa has put forward the view that Vedda language is Creole. That is one main concept on Vedda language. It was a Creole. So when we consider the linguistic feature of the initial stage of the Vedda language, it can be best identified as a simple language with limited vocabulary, where most of the words are directly related to their main occupation, hunting. They use many words, descriptive terminology, denote a single idea or concept. For example, in Vedda language, Bada Uchcha Damanava means hungry. In Vedda language, Isa Kotana Poro, it means comb. In Vedda language, Uda Tanin Mandovena Diracha means rain. They use many words to denote one idea because they have very limited vocabulary. And comparing with Sinhala language, they have simple negative formula and simple counting system. There are many examples to prove that Vedda language's initial stage was simple and had a limited vocabulary, but due to time concern, I will not go for further examples. When we focus on the identity of Vedda language, the Vedda vocabulary includes a number of words that are not used in Sinhala or any other Aryans. That is very important point of the Vedda language. For example, Chamanala, its tortoise, Mundi, iguana, Chappi, bird, Chalava, kitchen vessels, or clay pot, Bokki, rabbits. There are many words which are very identical in Vedda language. The Vedda language has a very interesting morphological process that is very unique for them. They use distinctive morpheme in their word formation process, as you know always, Pojja. Pojja is a bound morpheme. In my research, I have found this is a bound morpheme. Pojja is a bound morpheme found frequently in Vedda language, is the most productive inanimate marker. When word borrowed from Sinhala or the other language, they used to join with the Pojja and it's become a Vedda word. For example, Gam or village in Vedda language, Gam Pojja. And Hita combined with the Pojja, Hit Pojja. It's become a Vedda word. And Vava, it's joined with that bound morpheme Pojja, Vav Pojja. And also they borrowed some words from the English language and combined with the Pojja morpheme, and then it's become a Vedda word. For example, three-wheel Pojja. That is become a Vedda word. And phone Pojja. So, currently the Vedda language has borrowed not only lexical terms, but also sounds, grammar, and meanings from dominant language, particularly colloquial Sinhala. As a result of these major socio-cultural changes, their needs and lifestyle have completely changed, as Professor said. This is also affected for their language too. Therefore, considering all these points, we can conclude that due to a cultural and linguistic assimilation, the Vedda language in a single spoken area has become an extreme language mixture. It means that completely mixed language. And while in a Tamil speaking area, it's endangered. As Professor said, in Tamil area, all the Vedda people are speaking Tamil. They believe Hindu gods. When we come to the conclusion and recommendation, we can conclude like that this is, currently the Vedda are under significant pressure to modernize, which threaten their survival as a distinct cultural group. The extinction of language leads to an unbearable loss of unique cultural, historical, and ecological knowledge. Therefore, it is essential for the global community to pool its resources and strengthen the preservation of linguistic and cultural diversity. If you don't speak, if you don't breathe, there is no earth. If you don't walk, there is no world. If you don't speak, there is no world. So we have to be put our attention to protect this kind of language. As a linguist, we have a lot of work to do with this language. So now I'm going to show you my field experience with Vedda region. This is a Dambana. I have a lot of memories and sharing thoughts with Vedda chieftain Vanni Latwa. I call it Vanni Mama. And this is first graduate from Dambana. Dambane Gunawardana is from Colombo University graduate. And this is also, I have been there. There are small schools and preschools there. So I have been there, and because I have done participation observation methods to do my research. So I have been there in that region long time, for a month or 2 months. So I have a lot of experience with them. This is a very interesting experience. I have been in Wakare, but the problem is I also can't exchange my idea with them because they all speak Tamil. So this is my research output. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to talk with this professional forum. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think, while thanking both speakers, I think we can start a short discussion now.
Thank you very much to both for very interesting, two very interesting presentations. My question relates to Dr. Priyanka, and that's two things. One is, what are the measures now being taken to preserve the Vedda language? And the second point is whether you're using the AI and so on, which is available in the Colombo University, to really look at the differences of Vedda language, computational linguistics and so on. Thank you.
Yes, actually for the computational linguistic, you mean can we use the Vedda language in the computer? Is it?
No, but using the, analyzing the language and looking at its structures and so on, we might be able to find some linkages with other aboriginal languages.
Yes, that is very important because the thing is that, as I said, so they have very limited vocabulary. So after that, it's assimilated, and then especially for the Damban area, it's assimilated with Bittanni Basa. So the first we have to find out the proper, the initial stage, what are the proper words. It is one issues. Because of nowadays, as Professor said, it has assimilated, especially in the Sinhala areas. They use, especially in the Dambana, a lot of Bintanne Basa are in Vedda language. And also in the Tamil area, they don't speak Vedda at all. So we have to find the initial stage that I have told, that I have tell that there are some special words in Vedda that is not in Sinhalese or any Aryan languages. As a linguist, we have to collect some data and we can store it. That is a responsibility of the linguist. We should have to do it. And even the language is a mirror of the culture. So going through the language, we can find their culture and customs and everything. That's you mean that is today's Indigenous Day. So as a Sri Lankans, we have very colorful indigenous. That is our Vanilatto. So that is our responsible to collect that data, not only the language and culture and their rituals and all the things. We have to collect it and record it, because this is very important for our future generation who are going to do the research on this area. Yes, I agree with you.
Thank you very much for both the presenters, Professor Premakumara and also Dr. Priyanka. So, this is further clarification from Professor Premakumara's the presentation. So, I would like to know what are the reasons for deviate from the majority from the very beginning. These were the people, because if we are going through the present situation, most of them are Buddhist, and also they are speaking in Sinhala. So why they deviate from us? This is one thing from Sir's side. And then another question, Dr. Priyanka proposed that Vav Pojja. So my question is whether they knew this kind of resource before that, before they know the term, whether it may be the natural thing which they used very beginning. The term, whether our term may be late, right? New one. So which kind of term they used for that? It means, my point is, the whether it cannot be, that resource cannot be known through us. They have to know before that. Therefore, Vaupojja, can we say they used whether as a resource just after our connection? Before that, they don't know about that kind of resource, right? So that is my another question. Thank you.
All right. I don't know if you have any other question. So deviation from Primal, deviation from what? Deviation from this. So whether deviating from the Sinhalese majority? But this deviating, of course, if you really look at the historically speaking, Vedda were not really deviating from the Sinhalese, but they were really parallel. They have a parallel connections from the Sinhalese kingdom as with the Veddas. So these are two different entities where they have a mutual relationships, right? So the Vedda basically provide meat, what you call dadamas, then of course the bee honey and kind of stuff to the king, and king gave certain things for them, right? So not only that, but also when the king needs those people for fighting or war, so the Vedda would definitely help the king. And also not only that, in the Kandyan kingdom, actually some of the kings, queens were really protected by the Vedda people. So Vedda also guarded certain areas of the Indian kingdom. That also very history, right? So they were really not really marginalized. Now they come from the Western imagination, That was the whole idea actually we had to deconstruct. But later on they were really getting independent, developmental, what I call development state. Developmental state, actually they were really pushing to the margins and they were recognized. We had a unique kind of a state developed, and unlike, these parallel states and so on and so forth. So otherwise there wasn't a kind of marginalization or deviant from the Vedda and the Sinhalese. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah. So another question is, do they have another words for the vowel? Or they have identified from us? For that question, so we can give this answer like this, because in 1911, Seligman has done comprehensive research on Veddas, completely Vedda culture. So then he also put some attention for that Vedda language too. So then he said that there are 3 stages for assimilation. For a linguistic assimilation, there are 3 stages. The first stage is completely, that is pure Vedda language. That is the initial stage. And the second stage, he said that some archaic words taken from the Sanskrit or some words from our to the Vedda language. And the third stage is completely assimilated. So that in that vision and that concept, if we put in the Vedda language, so the initial stage, we don't have enough data. That is a problem. So that is a big problem. So some words are still remain because it's completely joined with their occupation that I said, the hunting, mundi or something like that. That these words are not, the thing is that lot of researchers have done on Vedda language. They also claim that these words are not related from the Sinhalese or either any Aryan languages. So that is the thing. And another point for my view, so Vedda doesn't want to speak too much because they are hunter. So normally hunters are not speak too much. So they are very calm and quiet. So they need only some words to related words to when they are going to hunting. So that is another point. Especially when I was in the Vedda region, especially I met some old generation Vedda people. They are very calm and quiet. They don't want to speak too much. Even nowadays we are thinking that Vedda has some Janagi or something like that. I think it's some researchers also claim that they also started after assimilated with Bintandi Baswahara. So that's why some scholars identify Vedda is a dialect of Sinhala. That is wrong. Because the thing is that it is not a dialect. It's kind of simple language, started with initial stage, and after that they borrowed some words from us and also the new words like three-wheel pojja, phone pojja. So when I was in field, they use mobile phones, they use TV, they use four-wheel also. So for that things, they don't bother to make some special word for that, identify that word. So they use the same words that in existing language and used to like pojja, that morpheum, and then it's become a Vedda word. Samanang api ara pojja kila kiwwa gamam api Vedda kila genon. So sometimes you use the pojja is mean identically the Vedda word. So the thing is that this is the time we have to collect the data. Otherwise, that word also, after some years, it will be also vanish.
Okay, let me ask a short question. Now, I think, should Veddas be Veddas? Or can Veddas be Veddas? It looks like it is unlikely that Veddas to remain as Veddas. So, before the extinction, is there anything that we can gain out of them through this research? Say, they are traditional hunters and also they have been wandering in forests. So things like reforestation, do they have any knowledge that we can gather from them through research?
I think I think you can hear me. No? I think it's a good question, Sumedha. Now, you see how, ecologically speaking, basically, Vedda's knowledge is very much important for us to actually preserve and practice, because they have a now I met a very recently scholar from Columbia University. She's still here in Sri Lanka, but she wants to actually do a kind of a map out the ecological knowledge of the Vedda people, because Veddas basically they have preserved lot of traditional knowledge where they interact with the environment quite friendly manner, right? So I think we have a lot of treasure in knowledge of knowledge among the Vedda to be actually preserved and make use of to conceptualize the world that we are really facing severe challenges in our future of our world. You see, now unfortunately we don't basically pay much attention on this preserving their knowledge. And while I am not saying that Vedda should not be modernized. Vedda can modernize. If you really look at the Maoris, and if you look at some of the Red Indians and all kind of people, but they have not forget about their culture. You see, they preserve their language, they preserve their cultural practices, they preserve their the houses and architectural structures and so on. So then you can be modernized by preserving that. Unfortunately, in Vedda in Sri Lanka, so they are totally losing their cultural baggage, cultural knowledge, which basically we had to intervene and with the cultural ministry or any other government should take a serious serious action on that, and immediately, otherwise I'm sure it's already fastly disappearing. Yeah.
From the point of view of the SLAAS, if we are to preserve the culture and language and so on, what steps should the government take? Because this is becoming extinct.
Yeah, I think the policymakers and politicians and all other people, they have to take a very serious attention on this. And a place like SLAAS can actually initiate that kind of a project where we can basically not just study them, but also preserving their cultural identities and their practices, languages, whatever they have their own rituals and kind of stuff. And SLAAS can be the one of the focal point where we can initiate a kind of projects and ask the government or any other agencies to basically support us. And here I have another friend's anthropologist here, UV. So you want to make a comment on that? Actually, he did work on Vedda in East Coast. Yes, I am sure you have a wealth of knowledge on that.
While you are talking, when we started some of our initial surveys in the 80s, we did a survey from Verigal all the way down to Portugal. And some of them have almost disappeared in terms of the identity, but you could see remnants of it. Now, for instance, some of the names which are in the families, from there you could trace their location, so on. And what you spoke largely was about their cultural, social, and other elements of it, which, and those are disappearing. When we did our survey, many of those people have been identified as, their birth certificates have been noted as Tamils. And the GS and all those government officials felt that they are doing a good thing by not identifying them as Veddas. Even now there are those two trends. Some of the younger people don't want that, but some of the other younger people who are a little more educated are proud of that identity, and they don't want to keep it because, they know that it's not something that is there to be ashamed of, but something that they can be proud of. The older generation are very much, proud of that identity. So, and again, the question of religion is, you said it's Hindus, but I don't think it's like a sort of traditional Hinduism. If you look at the Hinduism of the East Coast, it's not the agamic Hinduism. It's like very folksy. The temple in Palchena, the Palchena temple is a very traditional one, and it's officiated by a traditional Vedda priest, but he doesn't conduct the kind of Vedda ritual. But if you go to the village, you don't have Hindu deities. You have rocks and other things. And the rituals, they use a mixture of Vedda language and a little bit of Sinhala, a little bit of Tamil. And that seems to be, to talk of Durkheim's idea, generate a certain collective effervescence among those people, and that seems to be very powerful. So there are elements of that. So it's not Hinduism. And you also have Hinduism. Now, for instance, if you go to some of those old village temples like Palchen and other places, you have, the sort of Hindu religion taking over, but then outside you have the pandal, that pandal kind of thing, which is there. So those are some of the other elements. But what is more important is the impact of the war. When we met them about a month ago, what they have is real existential problems. Their lands are being taken over. They are being forced away from their traditional occupation by other communities, other minority communities, by force. They're prevented from coming back because they left because of the war. Now when they come back, their land is taken over. So that's one. The second thing is religion. A lot of these spiritual churches are making inroads, and they are lured by money, and that has created a lot of tension within the families, leading to divorces, parents versus children troubles, and so on. And these are real serious issues. And they said our community is disintegrating completely. So what I think, if SLAAS is to do something, we need to do a complete survey of the impact of, it has to be two tracks. One is like what you have suggested, how their cultures have changed, what's the impact of it, and the change is inevitable, so those things will happen, but how do we preserve? Now, how do we preserve their language? Because they have always spoken. Now, the coast Vedda community of the East Coast have always had Tamil, and they also have lots of Sinhala words into it. So linguistic study would be one, and their religious practices. These have to be very carefully documented. And the second thing is in the post-war. What impact the war has had on them as a community, and that's the most important thing. And if SLAAS, if there is some way we can do it, I'll be very happy to help you in any way possible, because this is a community I grew up with as children. My mother is from Balachena, and then so we grew up with them. My playmates used to be some of them, so I have a sort of a moral obligation so to so that's my response.
Any other questions, comments? I think we can now try to conclude this. Normally, it's time to appreciate the two speakers now. Only senior member left in the committee is Professor Saroj Jayasinghe. Why don't I invite him here? And also Professor Mahesh Jayavira, the others member. Yeah. So I kindly request Professor Premakumara to be here. There's a token of appreciation for you. Then Dr. Priyanka Weerasekara, please come here. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, I would like to invite Dr. Pasan Bandara to propose the vote of thanks. I have to mention that this is a typical crowd that we see here, and there are some people who have joined online as well. And the other thing is, this series will be on YouTube for any viewers to visit. So it's going to be there. There's one last seminar that's going to be held in September, that is to mark the International Day of Innovations. Yeah.
Thank you very much, dear speakers, dear members of the SLAAS, and all the viewers who are joining from online as well. It's a great pleasure to be here and to deliver the vote of thanks. Again, we had a very successful eye-opening seminar at SLAAS-IDTDS, and we would be very glad to have this discussion today with our distinguished speakers, Professor Premakumara de Silva and Dr. Priyanka Weerasekara. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and taking your time to come here and share the wisdom that you have gained over the years with us. And I would like to thank Professor Nishara Fernando as well as Professor Sumedha Janati for coordinating with our speakers. So I usually summarize the content with some sort of thoughts, and this time Professor Sumedha, his last question was actually exactly what I was going to talk about, because what we realized in Professor Premakumara's and Dr. Priyanka's talks, that there is a certain a very alarming rate these Vedda people are modernizing. And I think Professor Premakumara answered one of my questions I had early in the session, that whether the modernization is good or bad. But I think it's inevitable, and then we as scientists, what we can do is basically report what's happening, and then basically at the end of the discussion, we came to a situation that we realized that some of the knowledge that they acquire is basically diminishing, and then probably we may have to take some quick action to preserve such knowledge and then gain it for our younger generations to see, as well as if we can use that knowledge for further applications, and that would be like really helpful. One of the examples I remember from one of the discussions with the Vedda people, they mentioned about their hunting practices. So they're hunting, but it's not blindly hunting. So it's directly coordinating with the patterns of the nature. So they are not hunting pregnant animal. They don't hunt small animals. And in some seasonally, they know which type of animal to hunt even. So they basically know some of the scientific approaches, even though they don't have a structured scientific knowledge or education, but they practice these things. So the knowledge, if we can acquire these things, then probably we can learn more about sustainability. We try to teach our students sustainability through very hard approaches, but these things are like very simple things, and then we can convince people how to approach sustainability without much of a problem, and probably missing some of the information in that sense. So if SLAAS and other scientific community can get together, and also the genetic information, so we might be losing that as well. So when knowledge is one thing, and then some of the genetic signals that correlate their heritage to our lineage, probably they are going missing as well. So if we are not studying them, probably it will be some sort of a missing part of the entire jigsaw puzzle. So with that thought in our mind, we hope this will be an eye-opening lecture for people who are listening to us, and I hope at least some collaborations and some research and development will be initiated through this discussion we had today. So thank again our speakers. Thank you very much for taking your time. I know you are very busy, but taking this time to come here in this busy afternoon is a really privilege for us. And I would like to thank Professor Mahesh Jayavira, always helping us with the tokens of appreciation. And we greatly appreciate your contribution as well. Want to thank the Technomedia for helping us going beyond the audience here and transferring our visuals to people who are outside the SLAAS, and also providing the facilities to record these things so anyone can actually refer these materials when they want. So thank you very much, Technomedia, and all the correspondence from Technomedia. Finally, I would like to thank, even not here, Professor Ramani Weerasekara, SLAAS General President. She has been really supportive in organizing these activities. And finally, Professor Sumedha Jayanatti, as well as all our committee members who are really helpful in organizing these events. So this is the 6th seminar that we had. So I think we had a very successful year, and then we are getting ready for the final sessions as well. And as Professor Sumedha just mentioned, we are getting ready for our final seminar, which will happen in next month as well. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and I would gladly invite you to join with our next month's seminar as well. With that, thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the day, as well as a nice weekend. And I would like to invite all the participants to the front area to get a group picture to keep as a memory. Thank you very much.